Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 33. We are doing the Voices of Strength series. We are on episode 33, and we have been doing this series to highlight homicide victims from law enforcement across the United States. And we have some guests with us today. I will quickly introduce myself in case anybody has not caught our show yet. My name is Marissa Barrera out of Woodland, California, and my brother was murdered by police in 2017. I began this series for the families of the homicide victims to come on and share their truths. So here we are today, and I'm going to let our guests go ahead and introduce themselves.
Okay, so I'll go first. I'm Marnie Wroth, and I'm Branch's mom, Branch was killed in 2017.
Yeah, and I'm Chris Wroth, Marnie's husband and Branch's father. And yes, Branch was killed the same year that your brother was killed. And I just wanted to really quickly, before we go on, and show everyone this picture of Branch. You could see. And one of the things you can do, which we've done and we continue to do, for those people, when you're trying to find justice for the victim, and it's pretty much impossible in this country. So you have to kind of make things up. So we send a Branch's picture with a statement underneath it to people in Rohnert Park, California, who are involved in law enforcement or involved in politics or whatever. And I'll quickly read it and then pass it torch to Kathleen, my good friend, who's waiting to introduce herself. And the subtitles read, "In memory of Branch Wroth, who was brutally beaten and then suffocated by 5 heavily armed men at their Budget Inn in Rohnert Park on May 12, 2017. The killers' names are David Watson, Sean Huot, Matt Huot, Mike Worley, and Eric Matson. Unarmed and mentally disorientated, he asked the killers not to kill him just before he was attacked. In June of 2019, a federal civil court jury ruled that the employer of the 5 killers, the city of Rohnert Park, must pay Branch's parents $4 million. The city refused to pay the jury's verdict, continues to endorse the murder, and continues to deny the need for local police reform. No justice, no peace. Rest in peace, Branch." And Kathleen.
I'm Kathleen Finnegan. I live in Santa Rosa, where I met the Roths, and we were fellow activists together. They actually are my mentors when it comes to activism, and I have done some work over the years with police brutality issues, excessive force, et cetera, et cetera. And I went to the trial one day when it was ongoing. I had the honor and privilege and devastating experience of watching the video of Branch being killed. I will never forget it.
Yeah, I might mention, Marissa, that our attorney, Isaac Schweiger, a friend who's also a friend who we had known prior because Isaac had represented Ramon Cairo, who was charged by Santa Rosa police during a demonstration. He was unjustly charged for something he didn't do. And he was acquitted. Isaac represented him in the criminal charges. Anyway, the point is, I forgot what the point was about Isaac, but he's a great attorney. But something that had to do with what Kathleen said.
In court?
Oh, in court, yeah, the video. We didn't allow it out because Isaac said, he's a father. He said, "I'm a father. I would not want the world to see what they did to my child."
Yeah.
So we thought about it and we realized, for example, our son Isa, who had a viral video because of the beating in the county jail that he had received in 2013, and it helped to get an agreement and help to get a settlement. But at the same time, we felt like, justice That's what we want. We don't give a damn about the settlement. So, and justice to us is people should not, we should not have to look, our children, our grandchildren should not have to look at them killing Branch. So the judge allowed us, because our attorneys asked it, to leave the courtroom every time they showed a video. So only our friends, none of our family, only our friends, and some of our friends would refuse to look at it too.
Yeah.
But it was so hard to look at. Everybody, I've heard the audio, but not seen the video. That it just was, and I can only imagine, like, you know, well, with your brother, Marissa, if you had had a video of those last moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much out there showing how bad the police are. Do you really need another video to learn the story?
And you know, thank you for sharing that, and all you guys for coming in, introducing yourself, for being here. Your long time work. The video and audio part, I do want to respond to that. So my brother's similar, and the audio, it's full audio, video that we know of and is available to us. It doesn't show the actual part. Even the audio, the pictures and stuff, I don't want that to be released. Like I've heard the audio, I've seen all the photos. I don't want my niece, my sons, I don't want anybody to see it. I feel that so much. And some people say, you know, get it out there, get people to see it, but it doesn't make a damn difference. So.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much out there. You know, everyone was shocked by what Derek Chauvin did, but you know, police officers do that all over the country, and they've been doing it all over the country for a long time. It was not long after Derek Chauvin did that I spoke with a gentleman who was a retired cop at a trailer, mobile home park over in Weed, California here. And he said he did that dozens of times in Los Angeles where he was a cop with suspects. You know, but we don't see that until someone finally films it.
Yeah, that's something I catch myself thinking about so much. Through this show alone, I've met a bunch of more survivors, and I just think about how much we don't know the numbers of how much this happens. People are abused. I can't even think of what type of number that would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every day.
Every day, and it's not a secret.
Yeah, since we've got you for, I guess, 40 minutes, I want to just ask people who watch this, and I'm sure probably a lot of people who watch this are people who've gone a lot of places looking for a lot of answers for a long time since they lost a loved one. But I particularly like Campaign Zero, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Campaign Zero is an organization working for police reform. And another thing I want to ask people to check out is the Advancement Project, which is another organization. But there are so many others. If there's one thing people who want to do something can do and haven't done anything, is join a local organization if you can find one. And if not, a national organization working to try to do something about policing in the country.
Yeah, you know, and there are a lot of families that watch, a lot of newer families, and some of them are isolated. Some of them can't go out. I've had families lately telling me that they don't know how to, maybe you guys can help, that a lot of people feel bad that they can't be out there. They don't feel like they're doing enough. They feel like they're not representing their child. So maybe something any of you guys can share about that.
Well,
the one thing, like I said, that we're still doing consistently is sending out the little letters I showed. We just sent out 17 yesterday to city council members, mayors. That's a little thing. It's not much. Of course, during the time before the settlement was finally reached with Rohnert Park, which we could go into, I guess, a little bit also. During that time, we of course went to their city council meetings and raised hell at their city council meetings, shut them, you know, had to call recesses a couple times and so forth because we were too disruptive, you know, things like that.
city council meetings,
yeah, we went to the Rohnert Park city council meetings. Of course, many people went also with us. I would say many, 15 or 20 people, and they would get up and speak during public comment. And It got a couple of times, it did get kind of raucous and they had to suspend it, the meetings, but that was nothing except that it made us feel better because we were pushing back, But in the end, did it change anything? No, they have not reformed. They've not changed. So, but you feel better if you're doing something. Yeah.
Yeah, anything the ladies would like to add to that?
I don't like, every day I feel Branch's loss. It's really hard because it doesn't seem to get easier. And I want to tell people that it never gets easier. It seems to get harder. Maybe you've seen that. I don't know. So every day I get up and I watch something that pisses me off. And, I feel like I need the motivation to keep pushing. And that's all I can do is keep pushing. If there is a meeting, go to it. That's all I can. Every day I listen to the 3 top cop videos of cops violating your rights. Every single day we see something about a cop violating somebody's rights. And I think people just need to keep that fresh in their minds all the time, that it doesn't stop and it doesn't go away. And there is very little reform going on. Kathleen can speak more to that because we lived in Sonoma County for 40 years. So, and it's still, it's like pulling teeth to get, Sonoma County to make the police accountable, to have any kind of oversight, or a Rohnert Park where our son was killed. They've been asking for oversight for years, and that is oversight is after the fact. So as you know, somebody gets killed and then they have oversight, so it's almost useless.
Yeah.
I'd like to add something, if I may, and that is from my perspective. I have not lost a family member. I don't have your experience. It's unbearable tragedy. I can share it in my heart, but it's not the same thing. So I would say that, number one, I have to be perfectly clear that the family's concerns are paramount. But what I have seen in these last 5 or 6 years, what's starting to turn things around, what's starting to make a difference, the reason that Chauvin is going to jail is because there was a video. And this is turning around the entire paradigm of what police can get away with. And we just watched a film about Andy Lopez, a 13-year-old boy who was walking down the street in 2013 carrying a little BB gun thing that looks like a rifle, but it's not a rifle. It's a toy. And a sheriff said, "Drop that gun," and within 2 seconds he started shooting. And he killed him and kept shooting. And if we have descriptions of this, there was in this new film some video footage of Andy lying on the ground where they left him some hours. But there was nothing showing exactly, I don't know if there was ever a body cam, a dash cam from the police, from the sheriffs. If so, I haven't ever seen it. But by the description given, the boy was walking along. He wasn't doing anything threatening, and yet this trigger-happy PTSD sheriff got away with murder, actually, and it just never should have happened. But what we saw in this case is now that it's very clear that from the moment the police started to interview him, because the sheriff's office could not conduct the investigation of this case, so they turned it over to Santa Rosa Police. They're brothers in blue. And when this deputy first encounters the detective who's going to be questioning him in this investigation, the detective says, now, we want you to be absolutely certain. This is a criminal investigation, and we want you to be completely, absolutely certain that you know that you are being considered the victim, only the victim. Now, that's all you need to hear about knowing how that case is going to turn out. They charged this boy posthumously with brandishing a replica weapon, and they thought, they called that his murderer the victim. Now this is just, and they got away with it. They got away with it. That deputy was promoted by the sheriff.
Right.
You know,
What you speak about, Kathleen, is cultural depth. There's a very, very deep cultural problem there, that you would mislabel things and change things around to fit your cultural paradigm, which of course is what we know the cops do every day.
Yes. But I think, the difference would have been, maybe there could have been a different outcome to this case if there had been a video, that if somebody had seen it and videotaped it. So I think this is something to be encouraged. And of course, the family should always have the right to say, no, we want this private. But
Kathleen, could you give us information, because people watching Marissa's program may want to see that movie? Do you know of how people might possibly be able to view the movie that just came out, I guess 2 weeks ago, documentary about the shooting of Andy Lopez in 2015?
Right. It's called 3 Seconds in October, the shooting of Andy Lopez. And it is not in distribution. Apparently there's a chance that it will be shown nationally on PBS. It was shown twice, now 3 times, I think, here by popular demand on our local PBS station. So we don't know where it's going from here, but I'll try and keep that information flowing to you as I find out. But it's only 28 minutes, but it is packed a wallop. It's excellent because it brings the issues of police brutality and unnecessary fatal force right to the present, with a couple of cases where people were killed. It was, just plain killed, as Branch was, as Andy was.
Yeah. Marissa has a quick sidebar to that, which is what Kathleen was talking about with Andy Lopez. It's interesting that when they went to civil court in the civil case, and the civil court looked at the evidence and looked at everything, they denied qualified immunity to Deputy Gelhaus, which is a very unusual thing. They usually just give them qualified immunity, and it went up to the Supreme Court. It never really got decided because the Lopez family settled with the county before the Supreme Court made a decision about the deputy's qualified immunity. But the reason that they didn't get qualified immunity was because the civil court brought everything into the courtroom. The district attorney just said, no, we're not doing it. Brought everything to the courtroom. And in the end, what we all learned was that Andy Lopez, a 15-year-old boy wearing Bermudas and tennis shoes and carrying a toy gun, was at an intersection when the police car with the officers pulled up, the deputies, and they saw him carrying the little gun at the intersection. They flashed their lights, they beeped their siren, and they called in. He took a look at them, turned and looked at them, kept on going. And he walked at least 70 feet down the next block before the police car stopped in the street, and Gelhaus jumped out, dropped that gun, blah, 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 and shot him 8 times. The bottom line, this was a civil court, which is criminal court never got to see. The civil court thought that if you watch a boy walk 70 feet from your police car and you beep the siren and blump, blump and all that, and he's just ignoring you like he's totally innocent, there's a chance he might be innocent. And maybe the deputy could have considered that before he jumped out and shot him down. So it was pretty clear to the civil court. But of course, district attorneys, as you so well know, well, you know, it's impossible to get them to prosecute a cop, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Let me just jump in one more thing, Marissa. You said something about people oftentimes they feel like, what can I do? Or families. One thing that was criticized about this film was the activism was not mentioned. So it's really important to note for people that activism is very important, to stay on it, to push, they never would have had oversight. They never would have had anything in Sonoma County if it wasn't for the activists and the young people just badgering and going before the Board of Supervisors to say, you need to do something now, today. And they really didn't want us and other people in their chambers. And so what they did was they set up a task force to study, you know, and make recommendations. And one of the things they recommended was ILERO, which was an oversight board. It takes forever to get anything done, as you know, and it never seems to come to any kind of real fruition. Kathleen can speak to Measure P, which took forever to get oversight of the sheriff in Sonoma County in the past by the voters, and they're still going to court. The sheriff is still taking it to court, and the BOS was not going to appeal, but they did. So it's a constant go and fight and fight. And people are gonna get tired, but you have to do it, or they love it if you just give up.
Marissa knows that.
You know that.
Yeah, you know what? If you guys can maybe touch on something that the families have been asking on the show, and me personally, is about city council. Like, they don't even really, they're a little nervous to go. Maybe they don't really have that many people to go. So it's, even if they go with just themselves, one person, is, what do you guys maybe
and
share?
you only get a couple of minutes, right, of public comment. However, you've got to do it. You keep doing it.
Well,
and now with the COVID, you know, we had to do everything with Zoom, but you got to do it. It's not a choice, really. And they don't give you much time, and they tell, you know, you get a couple of minutes and then you're done, and they go on to the next person. But, you know,
Yeah.
do you have anything to add to that? So it's frustrating, to say the least, right?
But we can't give up. We can't give up, because there are some, you know, as the pressure increases on police for greater accountability and transparency, they are scared to death. They're pushing back even harder. So they're bitter. They're fighting it. Measure P was enhancing the ability of the ILERO independent auditor with more money and greater powers. And the police fought it from the cops. This is the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office fought it from the beginning. They tried to keep it off the ballot. That failed. And then the union filed a lawsuit about labor issues, and that is still up in the air about that. But they'll try anything. Dirty tricks, you name it. The campaign, oh my God, they lied. And they got away with some of it. But in the end, the voters actually, we won by a landslide, 66% of the vote. But I wanted to mention this current case. There's another case that's coming up again, because the sheriff, the deputy in question, there was a car chase trying to find this, running after this guy. They thought it was a stolen car. He actually had recovered his own car, and he fled. He was scared. He was also somewhat mentally challenged, I think. But they finally cornered him. and they started beating the, baloney out of him. And one of the deputies grabbed him. The guy was sitting inside in the driver's seat. He had his hands up, but the deputy grabbed him by the neck, trying to pull him out. I don't know if he was trying to pull him out through the window or what, because he wasn't opening the door. But trying to pull him out, and the guy was resisting a little bit. But this deputy just takes this man's head and he bashes it against the side of the car. It was unbelievable. This came from body cam footage. That guy actually was fired, and he is being charged. He will be going to trial soon, says the DA, and it would never have happened without this video footage. So that is something that it can't be discounted. But we still there's nothing that takes the place of persistent, reasonable, sometimes unreasonable and very loud activism, protest. We have to do it. It's our right and it's our responsibility.
So their response to activism is, of course, the police or the sheriff or whatever, is to push back. So what they do with people like Gelhaus and Sittig-Wattson, who killed Branch, is they promote them. So there they are, they killed somebody, everybody's upset, and what do? They promote them.
Yeah,
It makes you feel like there's nothing you can do about it. But
I had to chuckle a little bit, sadly, when the Rohnert Park Police Chief Tim Matos was holding Zoom meetings with the public, and he was inviting what you might call, I guess, progressive liberal people to interview him. And the person who accepted the questions and accepted emails and so forth for the police chief, Tim Matos, was Eric Burley, who was one of the 5 people that murdered my son, beat him to death in a motel room. And that happened with Gelhaus too, when he killed Andy Lopez. Gelhaus got a good cushy desk job with more pay. And apologies to Kathleen and all others who work on oversight. I'm going to just say something controversial, and that is I have zero belief in oversight. This whole thing with oversight started actually back in 1982 when a bunch of police chiefs met up in Montreal to talk about what to do about the community uprising over all the violence towards the Cribs and the Bloods and so forth back in the Southern California. Anyway, point is they ended up creating this thing, the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, NACOW. It was created by the police. Over years, more and more civilians have managed to get into positions of power. But what we saw when the county called them in to try to create oversight for Sonoma County was they advise you to do things, for example, don't give the oversight people subpoena power. That was all the task force. And by the way, the task force of the supervisors had to have the stakeholders on it. So no less than 8 people were either from the sheriff's office or the DA's office out of 21 people on that task force. Then they were all told they don't need subpoena power and blah, blah, blah. And to this day, years later, people like Kathleen are still fighting to try to get an oversight agency that can actually investigate something. To me, this whole oversight crap is decades of a distraction. Meanwhile, while we've had these decades of distraction, they've added pepper spray, they've added tasers, paying compliance, which is basically torture. That's a definition of torture. If you look it up in the book, paying compliance is the standard in 17,000 police agencies all across the country, operating on the same policy written by one corporation, Lexipol, which tells you how to use these electronic devices.
Yep.
And the whole thing has gotten so crazy that I don't see, to be honest, I'm sorry, I'm extremely pessimistic about police reform. I mean, the culture is so bad that the $260,000 member Fraternal Order of Police refuses to support the people, the police officers that were attacked at the Capitol building on January 6th. They don't support them, the Fraternal Order of Police. We have 800,000 cops in this country. That's about twice as many as we need, at least. It's gotten so ridiculous. I'm sorry, Marissa. I do not see any hope other than maybe capitalism, which seems to work for a lot of shit in this country. You know, maybe the cops would actually be better if we cut them in half and paid them more and had them actually follow some rules and be good cops. But as it is right now, it seems like the politicians, they need the cops' support. They will not, no city council is going to go against the local police union. They're not. Because if you do, you lose the next election. And all politicians and all city councils know that. So you don't take on the police if you want to get reelected. And we see that again and again and again. Who has taken on the police? Nobody. You know, has oversight created any policy change anywhere in America? I've called on people who support oversight to give me one change caused by oversight groups in policy in American policing, and I have yet to have anyone find even one thing that has changed. The only change that has come down is when the federal government has intervened in some jurisdictions because of some horrible thing and made an agreement with the local people or the local officers. So that's my rant. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry for the rants. We love to hear, you know, everyone has a different like part of where they're at, and you guys had experience even before. So I like to hear it. I agree with a lot you said there, Chris. And you know, there's people listening that are going to be listening that are brand new here. So it's good for them to hear these things. You know, they need to learn like the truth from people who really here doing it and experiencing stuff. So don't be sorry. And it's great things you guys are sharing with us today.
I'd like to say that I'm a little more optimistic about civilian oversight than Chris is. It is, again, you know, we know the cops are going to fight it tooth and nail. In our situation in Sonoma County, the task force recommended, I think 20-1, the one being the sheriff's representative on the task force, to establish an independent auditor. The board was not happy about this, really, because you know they want to keep the sheriff happy. I think what I've seen is the sheriff has his boot on the neck of the board, but the sheriff's union has their boot on the neck of the sheriff, because they threatened this guy once. He said no confidence, and he shaped up. So it's very interesting. There's lots of ins and outs, but we finally got, and the activists absolutely had a major part to play in getting that board to set up the independent auditor. So here's a new guy comes in. He's a public defender's attorney from San Francisco, who came in as the first auditor. He established the office. He wrote the ordinance. He did all this stuff. He could establish the community advisory council, et cetera, on and on and on. He started from square one. It was like nothing there. He was, from the get-go, he was underfunded massively. He had one assistant, and he had all these audits to do that, you know, plus other things, outreach and all kinds of other things. And so he did the best that he could. So his first year, he didn't find too many infractions against the sheriffs. And so everything was kind of hunky-dory until the second year, when he found there were a great deal more infractions, a lot more problems. And he was threatened. He was told not to release that report. He went ahead and he did it anyway. And things kind of went downhill from there, because the pressure on him was enormous, and it turned out to be a terrific strain on his health. And he eventually retired from that job. So then we got a new auditor. And the interesting thing here is that, as far as we can tell, she's just a little too cozy with the sheriff. The sheriff, when she first came in, said, "Oh, I'm really excited to be working with her." It was a 180 from the previous, the auditor. So he's so happy he's going to be working her. We're going, uh-oh, this doesn't augur well, and that in fact has played out that way.
That's
and
right.
so she is now our auditor. subpoena power is there, and more money is there.
But that auditor has done nothing. So nothing.
The which
You'll
is
see, she has not done
Right.
she
And you
hasn't
know, can I-
investigated
right.
anything. She hasn't.
Marissa, just as what has happened with Sonoma County, just as happened with Rohnert Park. Branch was killed in Rohnert Park. Since Branch was killed in Rohnert Park, nothing has happened. The police still do everything the way they did. No policy change, nothing. Nothing. What has happened in Sonoma County? Exactly the same thing. They still do everything they've always done. Nothing has changed. Now, what there has been, and Kathleen is documenting it, there has been an awful lot of Politico and sheriff, blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah, 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 blah. And it's gone on for
Mhm.
years. And that is what they do. Blah, 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 blah. It goes on for years. I
Yeah.
say people who say they've found a way to reform the cops, show me the reform. Show me what happened. I know some things have happened. Cambridge did a pretty good job. Compton, LA did a pretty good job firing them and reorienting, getting a new thing. Maryland, I understand, recently got rid of qualified immunity. So it's not like there hasn't been some incremental progress
But
here and
it's
there.
so little.
But it is so little,
Not enough.
considering the magnitude of the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So David, George Floyd was killed over a year ago, and very little reform has taken place.
None.
And the Rohnert Park was told more than 20 years ago. The Civil Rights Commission came and said, you need oversight, you need all the different departments, right? In
Yeah.
Sonoma County.
The whole
And Rohnert Park, where Branch was killed, said they would, they turned it down. They never had any oversight. So, fast forward to this year, they have a brand new city council, and they tried to at least have some oversight. And what did they vote on? I mean, the people that voted for it were great, but they got voted down because it's a majority. And they decided they were gonna study it.
They were going
They were gonna look at it.
No, they didn't even decide that, did they?
Yeah, they did.
Oh,
So
a committee, yay, a committee.
another committee to study oversight of police brutality. It's really insane.
Gosh. So that's interesting, just hearing the two different, like,
Yeah.
what Kathleen shared, then you guys hopping in like, no.
Well,
I mean, for the magnitude, like Chris said, what the problem is, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough.
Right. And I just want to really quickly point out when we got involved with this, one of the things I learned, I didn't even know, and I'm in my 70s, that our justice system, our whole system, the entire system, is only one system of justice. Retributive justice, and that's what is based on law and order and crime, and it's retributive justice system. We also have four other types of justice, which we've never introduced. Procedural justice, which actually at the federal level, the Community Office of Policing at the federal level has tried to get local offices to look at procedural justice. And the city of Providence actually created an ordinance for procedural justice for the policing called the Providence Community Police Relations Act. And that's been working very, very well, where they basically regulate the police and they set up how they're to behave when they do stops and so forth. And that's a procedural justice thing. It's not a redemptive, there's no crime, there's no law and order. It's different from retributive justice, which is what we have with law and order. Then there's also restorative justice, which we have a little bit in Santa Rosa. Some places, like if a teenager robs somebody's house and he goes to juvenile court, the court may decide to bring, if they have a local nonprofit that does restorative justice, bring the nonprofit in, and they will counsel him and then have him meet with the people he stole from, earn money, pay it back, mow their lawn, whatever, do things to make things right again. And that's how he pays for that, rather than going through our normal retributive justice system. That is a little bit happening. And then distributive justice, the other type of justice, which looks for income equality, this is America, capitalism, we have that. Not at all. That is not even being tried as a pilot program, as far as I know, anywhere. So we really are in the infancy of having a just society. We are only using one type of system that we could be using. And to me, that's something I was shocked to hear. I was also shocked to learn about plea bargaining. Used to be a scandal. Plea bargaining used to be horrible. No one did it except rich people who want to buy off the crime they have done. But it has moved into this normal thing now.
Mhm.
And they've studied it. They know that 56% of us regular folks, 56% of us, if we're presented with a plea bargain and we think they're going to win, we think somehow or another we will, even if we're innocent, we'll cop a deal, even if we're innocent, and we know we're innocent. So plea bargaining, which originally was seen as a horrible thing, is still a horrible thing, but it's normal. Paying compliance in the police work, same thing. Paying compliance is torture, pure and simple.
Torture.
That's all it is. And yet it is in every police agency across the country. And to me, the only way to turn this around is to give the police what they want, which is number one, more money. And number two, make them heroes. And in order to make them heroes like they want to be, we have to set policies and plans. A good one to start with is what we set for the people in Iraq. Our 17-year-old boys that went to Iraq were told when they're riding tanks down the street and men are walking around with AK-47s, they cannot fire at anybody until they're fired upon. But why the F can't the police in America do the same thing? Why do we have to gun down people like Andy Lopez or Tamir Rice or whatever? Because supposedly we fear for our life. You shouldn't be a cop. What you should do is only fire your weapon if you are fired on first.
We don't agree.
And that you could get more money for. And we should do these things to make the cops tell them, if you're not a fat guy eating donuts at the coffee shop, if you're working out and you're in shape, you get more money.
I don't agree.
You know, well, because and get rid of half of the cops and pay the ones that are left for doing a good job more than they get now. Because right now, every cop is a donut eating. I'm about to insult them. I shouldn't say.
Yeah, really, that's enough.
Let's hear what Marnie has
I
to
always
say.
rant about the cops. I'm sorry.
No, I don't always agree because I never think paying anybody to be good,
Right.
to do the right thing. To me, you know, you're either a good person or you're not. And most cops have become kind of rotten. They really have. And for those that they say, oh, there's some good cops, for those that are good, oftentimes, not all of them, but oftentimes they will not turn a bad cop in.
Right.
And so to me, they're all rotten, but they're all good cops. It's just they're far and few between.
She's talking about morality though, and being a good person. But the problem we have with the cops is more than anything, and people should understand this, the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of the United States is the biggest problem, much bigger than the Congress or the Senate or anything like that. It's the Supreme Court. Look up Garner versus Tennessee. Years ago, Garner versus Tennessee, they did a decision which basically opened the door to all these shootings, saying that if you thought you had a fleeing felon, or if you thought your life was in danger, you could shoot, so forth. They've gone on with the 3-second rule, which basically says cops have to decide within 3 seconds, so you give them a lot of leeway if they make a bad decision. They've even came up with a 21-second rule. It says if you have a knife or something, you're 21 feet away and you refuse to drop your knife, they can shoot you because they figured out that you might not be able to get a shot off and protect yourself if you're that close. The Supreme Court is responsible for these decisions that they have made when police have taken it up there, that have given the police, well, qualified immunity is another one, carte blanche to do what they want, you know, and to shoot. If they're like Gelhaus got off because he was afraid for his life, he said. All of them get off because they're afraid for their life. If you're afraid for your life and you see a kid with a toy gun and you have to shoot him, you should never be a cop. You know, it's just crazy.
On a rant.
I think it's clear that, you know, there are the system itself, and this is what we hear from ex-policemen, of high rank, some of whom are activists now in Sonoma County. And, he said it's the culture of police that has to change. And that's the hardest nut to crack, I think. But nonetheless, the people have to, we can't let up, because, it is just, it's clear we're fighting an uphill battle. But there are changes that are happening. I think, civilian oversight, I think, is making some difference in some towns and cities. And it is our only hope, really, for getting the funding and the ability to go after these egregious acts that are despicable. That we have to do it. We have to do it. And I think the police aren't going to police their own. It's going to be the civilians who've got to take on this mantle.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. And one of my reasons, Marissa, I want to say for being so cynical is just television. I grew up watching Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, John Wayne. My God, I love the cops. I even thought about being a cop once myself. And I thought, cops protect us. They're great. They're good people. Well, it never changed. Go up through the 70s, the 80s, whatever. And today still. So we all have to, I think, also appreciate that if we watch television, we are brainwashed. We definitely are brainwashed to look at cops in a positive view. And that's good. There are some good cops, but they're not, it's not that, well,
No, that's totally fine. People come on with their different experiences, different opinions, different places. Sometimes we get new families that are like, there are good cops. And then, I talk to them a year later, they're nope, FTP, you know what I mean? One thing, what was it? I had something and I kind of just went, but, the brainwashing part, it's a programmed into us. That's something I've been talking about to people, one person close to me, but just everything you watch, police, like I start to get sick. I don't want to see these police in every single thing I watch, especially as the heroes, unless it's, a bad cop type of thing. And then we're really seeing like, hey, that's actually very relevant. That's true. That happens. And, a lot of these things even poke fun at police shootings, or, hey, like hands up or don't shoot, just different weird things. Even in the younger children stuff, it's just out there. So very relevant.
Yeah.
I think another point that really has to be considered, and that is the militarization of police in the past, 20 or 30, 40 years. We've got the Pentagon getting excess stuff. Oh, well, yes.
Right. By a cop?
Is that Grossman, or is it about Grossman?
Yeah, it's Rise of the Warrior Cop.
It's almost outdated by now.
Yeah, it's pretty old now, but
it came out right after Andy Lopez was killed, that book. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of military equipment or surplus military equipment. This is by design. The Pentagon budget is astronomical, and they like it that way. So they have stuff they can't use to give it to the police. Why, the police have tanks, all this other stuff. So we're working on trying to get rid of that. But more important, I think, is the fact that the hiring practices. We have more and more and more and more soldiers returning from war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they are getting police jobs. They've got, like Gillhouse is thought that he has PTSD. He was known to draw a gun when he pulled over a guy for failing to signal a lane change. He approached the car with his gun drawn, and this guy said, "Oh my God, something is really wrong with this guy." He actually asked the officer, this is Gillhouse. This driver said, "Officer, can I help you with something?" And the passenger, I think it was his wife, and she said, "This guy's going to kill somebody." He tried to report it to the supervisor and never got anywhere with it. And he didn't pursue it. He didn't get help, and now he's feeling guilty. But that guy, this is a man should not be behind, a gun. That's just no way. And yet there he was, and he was promoted. And that just is not acceptable.
I don't know if, I don't know in the last few years if they've done studies about people who are in the military go into the police force, if they're worse or not worse, or if they're better, because a while back when this book was written, I understood that a lot of soldiers who came back and became cops actually did a better job, restrained themselves more, waited to shoot more, because that's what they're taught in the military. In being a cop, you're taught just shoot, just kill anything that moves.
Right.
So,
Center mass, shoot the center mass.
So I don't know if it's worse. The other thing I wanted to mention is I kind of disagree, although they're doing more studies, that women on police forces, it's better for the whole force in general, that women are more compassionate. I don't know again if that's true, because there's some pretty awful women cops out there, just as horrible, as mean, and as brutal as their counterparts. So I don't know if there's anything that will soften them, I'm all for it. I personally don't think that people should go into law enforcement, but that's me, because another activist friend says, if we don't have good cops, then what do we have? We have bad cops. So
Yeah.
I agree somewhat that we need better policing. We need cops that are brave and have a modicum of bravery in them. But right now we seem to be producing the lowest of the low.
But here's another thing. And now I get on another soapbox. The realm of the policeman is a white male. And that falls directly into why the police force was formed in this country in the first place. And it was to capture runaway slaves. And then it was to silence the protesters, watch out for those dark-skinned people, in the civil rights movement and stuff. And
Right.
So the thing that if we have more diversity, if we had more people of color and more women, and it would eventually make a difference, I think. But I think that we've got, we're also looking at a system of white supremacy, racist infrastructure that permeates every single aspect of our society in this country. Everything. And until that changes, I don't know how anything else will change.
That's right. Yeah, it's dominated. All right.
Yeah. It's Jim Crow is alive and kicking. And it is just it's
Oh,
I told you you'd hear
there he
him.
is.
he doesn't like it either.
How much time do we have left, Marissa?
Just a couple minutes now. We started a few minutes after because we chatted, but yeah. So, I mean, is there anything else you want to touch on, and especially just for the other families that are watching? Anything else for them?
I would like to say what I would do. I'm not probably going to do it because I'm very, very busy right now with other things, and there's a lot going on in my life. But if so I'm not really involved in police activism, anti-police brutality activism. Where we live in Mount Shasta, California, there's only about 3,000 people here, very small police station. But let me just say, if I were to get back into it, to try to make change myself, I'm pretty sure what I would do is I would first of all go down to the Mount Shasta police station, my local police station, and I would try to make friends with those people down there. I would try to make friends with the staff and the office and the officers, and I would go down as often. I just basically try to make friends with them. And so that I would be welcome to sit down and talk, maybe with the police chief. And then I would try to propose to them something where they would, reduce the number of police that they have and raise the pay of those that stay behind, and change their policy and reward those that stay behind by giving them a higher level of income, and let the others who don't want to follow the new policy leave. And some new policies could be very simply things like we've talked about. Don't shoot your gun at somebody who hasn't shot at you, like they do in the military when we send people overseas. Now, that's totally against current police policy everywhere in the United States. But if you had that policy, you would then also be the only police who are heroes in the United States, the only ones really willing, if necessary, to give up your life to defend public and public safety. You'd be elite, set aside. Not only would you make more money, you would be a hero. And then there's other things that you need to do, obviously, like they need to stop using pain compliance. In 1983, I worked at Napa State Hospital with young autistic men. Some of them were pretty big, up to 21. They sent us to a 3-week class to restrain them, called mechanical manipulation. People do it this all over the place in group homes and hospitals. You control the arms and legs. It takes 4 people. Well, 5 people could have done that with Branch, and instead they just hit him with flashlights, punched him with their fists, kneed him with their knees, tased him with their taser, never made any attempt at mechanical manipulation, which people are required by law to do in state hospitals, but not in the police. What I'm saying is we could elevate the police. We could actually pay them more, because right now they're at the bottom. They are really crappy. They are a bunch of fat, out of shape, donut eating, taser firing guys who don't have a clue. But they could be paid more if they were better. And it could be better if they refused to kill us, because they worried that we're a kid with a gun. They could be better, and they could be paid more, and we could sure as hell get rid of a lot of them, because we don't need 800,000 cops in our country. No way. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Marnie, you look like you might want to say something.
He gives you said it all. I agree with most of
She
it.
knows I talk a lot.
And I hope that people who listen to you find it in their, find the strength to just carry on and fight for justice. I know that's a buzzword, but keep fighting for their children, their loved ones, their family.
And keep loving your little ones. This is the best time of your life when they're little like this.
Yeah. And they'll be different, hopefully. And our children are, the 5 that are left are really good with one another and with us. And we've gone through hell and back, but somehow we find our way home.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that, guys.
Thank you for doing Voices of
Thank
Strength.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any
Thank you,
final words,
Kathleen.
Kathleen?
All right.
Any final words for you?
Another note of encouragement. A lot of municipalities are now initiating what's called the CAHOOTS program.
Right.
Started in Oregon, and it has
We did touch on that.
the top cops out of mental health calls, and we're seeing in mental health professionals.
Right.
This is a big step forward. If we had CAHOOTS had been in place in Rohnert Park, we probably would still have a branch.
Branch. That's right.
That-
And we should have talked more about that there are departments
Yeah,
that are instituting programs that will facilitate other people coming to mental health crisis intervention. And that's what's needed, because so many people are killed who have mental health crisis.
Yeah.
Branch did, and he shouldn't have, and he was naked and unarmed. So it's cops should not be going to mental health crisis calls. Nevertheless, I just want to say one more thing they're doing, and you got to watch out for them because cops are so sneaky, is that some departments are instituting the CAHOOTS program, and yet they'll still call cops out to make the scene safe for mental health crisis to come in. And to me, that defeats the purpose. In Oregon, they don't do that.
You know, I just want to note too, because the family I had on, their episode premiered on Monday, and they had, I think in that area, it was called the PET or Pete team, but it was basically for crisis intervention,
Right.
and the cops came too. So it just, and they killed him. So in front of his family and the children and his parents. So
Yeah, you can't have the cops.
You
come.
can't have the cops at all.
and that family purposely told them no cops. They're calling, trying to do the right thing, trying to use what has been implemented to make a difference. And
Yeah. Anyway, I guess that's it.
sorry,
Thanks so much for having us
something
on your
popped-
show, and I want to watch. I'm going to go to your website and try to sign. We can see some of your other ones on the older things that you've done. You've done 33. We can see them
Yeah.
on the website.
Yeah, so all are
right.
available on the website. And
All right.
yeah, so thank you guys for joining us so much. I will send you guys the premiere date and everything and through email.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Love you.
Okay.
Bye.
Mwah.